This is a walkthrough of the Post-Fire Recovery Readiness Guide. This guide is intended to support planning and implementing the relationship building, information sharing, resource mapping, and capacity building to support robust, effective recovery from wildfires. Because recovery requires action by the whole community, the audience for this guide is intentionally broad. It is aimed at organizations, government departments, and community leaders that might be involved in recovery at a city or county level. The guide provides a high-level overview of basic elements of recovery, from authority and decision-making structures to mechanisms for financing recovery. It also covers the basic phases of recovery and introduces a local recovery support function and lines of effort framework that describes working groups that commonly arise to deliver needed resources during the recovery process. The guide text is in three main parts. It begins with recovery operations and governance, moves to the phases of recovery, and then covers the local recovery support function and lines of effort framework. This structure is meant to provide you with the knowledge to plan for recovery, an understanding of how the phases of recovery commonly unfold, and understanding of important areas such as housing, economy, natural resources, cultural resources, and health and human services, where resources will need to be concentrated for recovery. Nothing in this guide is meant to be prescriptive, but rather to provide a jumping-off point for you and your partners to discuss which of these elements are helpful and which are not suitable for your local context, and what you would substitute in their place. The beginning of the guide covers the basics of recovery planning, different types of decision-making structures that can be employed to coordinate recovery efforts, and key roles and responsibilities that are involved in effective recovery. This includes descriptions of critical elements such as community organizations active in disaster, long-term recovery groups, unmet needs, and the role that neighborhood leaders and volunteers might play in recovery. The Financing Recovery section offers an overview of local funding mechanisms that could be planned as part of a recovery process, as well as information on creating foundational pieces to help with federal compliance in the event of a presidentially declared disaster. The final section on communication and data sharing offers a quick overview of communication watchouts and needs in a recovery setting. The Phases of Recovery section covers pre-fire, the transition from suppression to recovery, and short and long-term recovery activities. For each of these phases, the guide offers some basic information on common recovery actions most relevant to that phase. This includes descriptions of pre-fire actions to build capacity, activities that take place when transitioning from suppression to recovery, such as damage assessments, debris removals, and activation of local recovery support functions. It also includes a few details on short and long-term recovery. Of course, how exactly these phases roll out will vary depending on local context, the size and complexity of the fire, and local resources and process. The purpose of this section is to help develop a common operating picture by discussing these elements with your recovery partners and exploring them further during a tabletop or other joint training exercise. The final section of this guide describes commonly found local recovery support functions and specific lines of effort that are placed within those LRSFs. These can be thought of as working groups that bring together specific types of expertise, resources, and collaboratives that will help recovery proceed most effectively, reduce duplication of efforts, maximize resources, and restore communities. Not all of the LRSFs or lines of effort may be relevant to your community, or you may need to create new ones to meet the needs of your local situation. The LRSFs and lines of effort described here are meant to cover common needs and situations that arise after a fire. The purpose of offering this framework is not only to support local coordination, but also to create a structure that can easily connect to and work with state and federal partners. In addition to this guide text, which is mainly informational, there is an accompanying recovery readiness toolkit that provides activities, checklists, and discussion prompts to assist you in working towards achieving post-fire recovery readiness with your whole community.